This is Ben Bostrom. Obviously, there's no swell in town and nothing to surf. You're stuck listening to Soupkast.
Welcome to the surface of Superbike Planet.
The SuperbikePlanet.com podcast, Soupkast, is brought to you by American Honda.
Hi, and welcome to SuperbikePlanet.com's Soupkast. This is episode number 2 for April 27th, 2006. In this installment of Soupkast, we'll have several decent audio features for you to rifle through, including an audio column by Ducati factory rider Neil Hodgson, talk with Miguel Duhamel about what really scares him, chat generally about violence against race bikes, and wrap up with some reader mail. The Barber Motorsports Park round of the U.S. Series Championship wrapped up last weekend, and there we finalized plans with former World Superbike champion and current Ducati U.S. rider Neil Hodgson to file an audio column on Soupkast after most of the rounds this season. Hodgson is, as you probably know, quite a character and knows how to have a good time. Thus, we feel it'll be an exciting feature for our listeners. Here's Neil's Barber Motorsports column, where he discusses, among other things, his recent adventure in trying to learn how to surf in California. I've heard that experienced surfers can be rather unfriendly to those that are just trying to learn the sport, and Neil's experience was something close to that.
Neil!
Hi, this is Neil Hodgson. I'm going to be doing this new Soupkast thing. I don't know much about it, to be honest. Basically, you're gonna have to listen to me almost every round. I'm going to give you a blow-by-blow account of what happens over the weekend and hopefully an insight into the excitement of what goes on in the world of AMA Superbike. I've actually been quite busy since Daytona. We've not done so much testing. We did a couple of tests. We did one in Infineon, which we had really bad weather, so we really had about half a day test there. And then we came to Barber, where we did a 2-day test, and we had half a day of rain. But I've tried to, because we've had 6 weeks off, which has been a long time, so I've just tried to enjoy my time in America. I've been training really hard, but I'm just trying to relax as well. Been doing a bit of, had a couple of goes at surfing, which has which I've not been too successful at, unfortunately. I've nearly drowned on a few occasions. It's like most sports, it's so much more difficult than it looks. Just getting out to the wave, getting to the section where you need to be, took me about 15 minutes. And then I was with a friend of mine, another English friend, and he said, right, get this wave. And I caught the wave, I didn't stand up, but he just dragged me back to the shore. And I didn't want it to, because then it took me another 15 minutes to get back out. So, great training though. I mean, you don't see many fat surfers, that's what I always say. Most of the surfers look like they're in shape, so I'm going to start trying to do more of it and incorporate it as part of my training. Yeah, usual situation, I got in everybody's way, and in fact nobody was friendly, you know what I mean? The weird thing was, nobody was friendly in the water, and then everybody was friendly on the beach, which is really strange. The same people that were almost sort of flipping you off are then offering you a cold one on the beach, and it seems really, really strange, because I can only relate it to, say, something like motocross. When I go motocross riding, if there's people there that aren't so good, I certainly don't try and intimidate them. If anything, I'd try and help them a little bit. If an American came over to a motocross track and said, look, it's my first time riding, I'd say, right, you want to just try and do this, so be careful of that. But with the surfers, there's a lot of macho sort of involved with it, which I found quite frustrating. This round was at Barber Motorsport Park down in Alabama, and basically this is how it all went. When I'm in California, I spoke to a lot of people, and they're like, "Oh, you're going deep south there, it's a strange place," and yeah, exactly, all the typical jokes. But I've come here, and the people are so friendly. They really are, and they come across as being dead genuine. And as far as the facility goes, coming here to the Barber race circuit, it's almost as good as anything I've ever seen. My dad's come this weekend and he can't believe it. He's been to the museum 3 times over the weekend, seriously. And he's like, every night we have dinner together and he's telling me more about the museum. I'm so bored of it now because my dad's, he's literally seen every bike. So But total credit to the gentleman that's built it all. It is really good. As far as the track goes, I've got to say it's difficult. It's just a little bit tight and twisty for a superbike. It's fun to ride, but it's just too many first gear corners. There's 3 of the corners are first gear, and the rest of the corners, really, apart from one, are all second gear on a Ducati. So it's frustrating because he had such a great landscape to work with. They definitely could have made the track a little bit bigger. Probably the same layout, but just maybe scale it up by a third. Yeah, it was. Practice didn't go too well. We had quite a good test when we came here, so I was confident for practice, and we tried a few things, and to be honest, everything we tried sort of didn't work, and I didn't have a good practice session. And then near to the end of qualifying, I had a little bit of an altercation with Mr. Mladin. And I've got to say, since I've been here in America, I've not had too many problems with him, but there's been 3 or 4 occasions when he's come past me during practice and made gestures to me. Not nice ones, and I've got to say I found it really frustrating, but I've sort of thought, well, don't bite, I know what he's playing at, that's Mladin, and I've let everything go, to be honest. Anyway, this time he did his usual and came past me and started waving his arms, and I just instantly just thought, I'm not taking this, like, who the hell, don't disrespect me, I would never disrespect another rider. So we sort of had a bit of an argy-bargy on the track, and I managed to sort of push him down into pit lane, and I went down to pit lane. And then, to be totally honest, I was pleased because I thought, well, that's that, and for me, honestly, it was over with. Anyway, at the end of the session, I was just sat having a debrief with my chief engineer, and he walked into the pit and wanted to start explaining and tell me the rules and say that I cost him, he was on his fastest lap and I got in the way, and I wasn't prepared to listen to him because he was talking to me like I was in my first season of racing, which I found really insulting. And so we had a little bit of an argument, and just the usual situation, what happens in that situation. I got a little bit heated up, I've got to say, but that's always my nature, you know what I mean? In that situation, I'm not going to let someone tell me what they think I should be doing. And that was it, really. There was a little push here and there, and it was soon over with. Yeah, qualifying didn't go according to plan. Like I say, to be honest, I didn't ride too well. I think I was thinking too much about the bike. We kept making changes, and I kept thinking about the bike, and at some point you've got to just think, this is the bike, this is the track, just get on with it, Neil, and instead I was just riding a bit tense, and hence qualifying 8th, which was not acceptable. Race 1 was a disaster from the start. I got a really, really bad start, and I was down in about 10th or 11th, and I got behind Ben and John Hayner, and it took me a couple of laps to get past those 2, and by the time I'd got past them, I then had to really sort of work hard to try and catch Miguel and Tommy Hayden. And to be honest, on my perfect laps, I made some really good laps that were really physical to make, but I made it and I closed the gap, and by the time I caught them, I had nothing left. I was absolutely shattered, and the tyre had gone, and it's not an excuse. I just had nothing for them. Literally I caught them and it was just like, I had nothing left, and so I ended up having to ride around, and I finished 6th in the end, I think. Yeah, 6th. So very frustrated, because I finished the race and I was 30 seconds behind Ben Spies, which is to feel like I felt after the race, to put so much effort into it and be 30 seconds down. I've been closer to Valentino Rossi, I really have, you know what I mean, in races. So yeah, I was pretty dejected last night. Yeah, race 2, didn't get much of a better start, really. And similar sort of situation, I was behind Ben for a few laps, and then I got past him. And then it was quite a lonely race, really. I just kept my head down, and I just so consistent with my lap times. It was incredible, just doing the same lap time pretty much every lap. But I needed to find 2 or 3 tenths of a lap to be able to close in the group in front, and I just couldn't do it. And then they stopped it when it looked like Roger got tangled with a back marker in quite a scary place, to be honest. There's not a lot of runoff where they collected each other. I don't know what happened, and I hope they're all okay, but they stopped the race, and to my unbelievable amazement, they decided to do a restart. I cruised down pit lane thinking, well, that's that over with, frustrating weekend out the way. And the team's, quick, get off the bike, we're going to have to do the clutch. They're doing a restart, 8 laps. Like, you're joking, 8 laps, why? Surely we've done 3/4 distance or whatever you are, over half. I don't know what you're supposed to do, but I'm used to not doing a restart in that situation, so... it was like the wind just was taken out of my sail. I'm sat in the chair feeling exhausted, thinking, God, we've now got 8 crazy laps, so... Anyway, we did the sighting, the warm-up lap for the 8 laps, and then, unfortunately, I think someone had quite a bad crash. I think they had maybe a technical problem with the bike, and so we came back into the pits, and then you sat back in the chair and took my helmet off again, and then psyched myself back up. Anyway, eventually they restarted it about an hour later or whatever, I don't know. And again, frustrating, rode as hard as I could, improved my lap times, got behind Ben again, just trying to make it hard for myself. Managed to pass him, but I, again, didn't have the extra couple of tenths, that's all I needed, just to be sort of in the fight. It's just frustrating seeing the riders in front of you, and lap after lap, the gap increasing by a tenth or 2 tenths, and there's nothing you can do. There really is nothing you can do. So definitely a frustrating weekend. Not a lot of fun to be had by me or the team, and just hope we hope the track suits us better in Fontana, because I can't ride any harder, and I know I can't, so just hope the result improves. I hope the track suits the bike and me, and we can at least battle, instead of just circulating. I want to be able to battle. I want to be on TV, I want to battle for the podium. Instead, it looks like I'm just riding round, but I'm not.
It takes a village. Okay, this may not be directly related to racing, but it is still relevant, I think. I've ridden motorcycles nearly as long as I have been alive, and my relationship with motorbikes has stretched the gamut of what it conceivably could be, I think. I've owned them, worked on them, and now virtually motorcycles in the motorcycle industry do a fairly okay job of supporting me and my family. Beyond being fun and wonderfully economic to use, important these days, motorcycles can really add something special to one segment of the population. It truly does literally change their lives. I am speaking of course, kids who learn how to ride motorcycles. I started riding when I was a preteen, and both my sons were riding before they were 4 years old. One thing that I've noticed is that when you teach a kid to ride, and I think I've probably taught 15 or 20 kids to ride thus far, it changes them. Some more than others, but it leaves none of them untouched. Kids who learn to ride early are more confident after they learn their way around a set of handlebars, and I think that never leaves them. They're respectfully unafraid to try things that other kids who don't get the opportunity to ride bikes shy away from, I've noticed. That's why I think everyone who is a proficient motorcyclist should at some time in their life teach a kid to ride. When we moved into our neighborhood in 2000, I then made a solemn vow that I was going to do everything I could to teach every single kid in the neighborhood to ride. It's 6 years later, and now every kid in the neighborhood but one knows how to ride. It's been about the same process and result with each kid. They tentatively start wobbling around and slowly grow into more proficient riding over a week or two. Then, like a seed planted in rich earth, motorcycling just takes them over. These kids normally come from families that are very foreign to motorcycles. Most of the parents have never ridden, so just getting their kids on a bike is a challenge. But the kids never look back. Our little 50cc dirt bike must have sold at least 8 or 9 bikes itself. A neighbor kid will learn to ride on it, put some time in on it, his parents see that it's a relatively safe activity, and boom, they're down at the local dealership picking something out. When talking to parents about their children learning to ride and coming with us on one of our family rides, you learn pretty quickly that all of the old motorcycle stereotypes are still firmly in place with the non-believers. Those are ugly machines of death, and don't touch that front brake lever, sonny, or it'll come right over on top of you. When faced with these views from some parents, I always like to describe a couple of incidents from my son's school sports days. Like the day a 7-year-old boy caught a well-hit softball right in the forehead at first base and was knocked unconscious for a few minutes. Or the morning they asked one of the dads at football practice to leave because he kept yelling, "Now get him! Kill him!" to his son on the field. And his son was actually trying to do just that to another 11-year-old. My point is, motorcycles used responsibly are a lot less prone to damage your kid than a lot of the other activities they could try. There's an added benefit to kids learning how to ride early, too. I've always thought that riders who learn to ride early are the safest riders in the motorcycle community later, and they become quickly quite competent racers. All the top names in the sport, from Valentino Rossi to Matt Mileden or the Bostrom brothers, were riding not long after they could walk. So, my wish is for everyone to consider teaching a kid to ride a motorcycle. It takes a village, as the title of the book reads, even if the village is a trail. I've played computer games occasionally since the dawn of man, or at least since they originally came out, and was actually quite intrigued to recently hear Daytona 200 winner and former Superbike champion Miguel Duhamel raving about the new motorcycle racing game for PlayStation called Tourist Trophy. It's made by the same folks who made Gran Turismo, which hopefully you know what Gran Turismo is, because I really don't, although I do vaguely recall my eldest kid playing something like that a few times as I made my pass through the family room on my way to the garage where the real fun is. I like any computer or PlayStation game that can't be described as tri-state killing spree or let's kill police officers for fun, so I was excited to hear what Miguel thought of this game. I found Miguel at Barber sitting quietly in the Honda Team Transporter, talking to his mom and girlfriend. I sat down on the seat in the Honda Transporter and started asking Duhamel some questions. My voice from this interview had to be vanquished from the Soupkast because I learned I had sat down on some sort of vibrating chair that had been left on, and all my really good questions made me sound like this. So Miguel, what did you think of the game? Here's Miguel.
I got a friend of mine that works at the Honda, Daniel Bausch. He's a good friend with Taku, the guy that was building that game, and they started talking and said, hey, you should, have Miguel take a look at it and see what he thinks. And I believe it was in California on Hampton and Embassy Suites that were in a hotel. Is this GP? Yeah, it was for the GP. Anyway, he came up and showed me a pre-production of what they had done, and so I played a little bit with it and told him what I thought should be changed or what I thought, would make more sense with the bikes and stuff like that. It was pretty cool, and they made incredible work. I mean, I've got the finished product now, and I think it's definitely one of the best, probably the best game out there, because I think they really did a good simulation and emulating the brake and the weight of the bike. Usually when you play video games, any other game of motorcycle, it's arcade-ish. You throw the bike around, and it's not like that in real life. You got to set it up. You got to brake, and the bike carries weight into the corner. If you're going too hot, it won't turn. So I only just started the game, but what I've seen, I was really impressed. Yes, very realistic, and setting up the corners, like I mentioned, how the bike turns and the throttle, and the guy, and you can see him downshift with his foot, and all that stuff, and shift up, and the gears, and tracks look good, and I was really surprised. To me, it's better than the other game. And it's funny because the beginning graphics of the game itself and stuff like that, you're going, wow, I wonder how this is going to be. But playing it is actually better playing than any other game I've played. So, like I said again, like the way it's the weight of the bike and the braking, how you got to brake pretty early. The bike carries weight, speed, and then you throw it in, get off, and get on the throttle and stuff like that. I was really impressed with it. I think it's as close as riding the real bike. I mean, that if somebody has problems with it, it's because they have a problem with their riding. They need to really look at the way it is. It's really fun the way it goes over, and it's not too hard where only a professional can ride it. He did a really good job, but he made it still fun, but still, like, to me the biggest problem for a video game is incorporate the weight. How much weight does this bike weigh? It's kind of hard to do that with just a remote control, but they did a really good job of how the bike brakes into the corner and the feel of it, and you can't just go in there, brake like a madman and throw it in sideways and stuff like that. It doesn't work. It works really similar to what a real motorcycle race works. So you got to be precise. You got to hit your marks. You got to just ride, and if you ride over, you go off. It's no good. So to me, like, from what my math skills as far as riding a bike for real life and racing that video game, it was surprisingly similar.
And hey, for the record, Duhamel doesn't live some kind of virtual life of speed, even when he's not racing. So, with so many riders living in the gambling capital of Las Vegas, they don't have state taxes there, do they? You occasionally hear stories from other riders like, hey, does Duhamel still drive an NSX? Because I was downtown the other night and I saw... There's also a nice urban paddock legend that Miguel has some sort of occasional and really successful hobby as a street racer in Vegas. I asked him about it, and he said in this case it was neither successful or anything to be proud of, which the story he tells now illustrates.
Funny story about me racing my car. I'm out there with Al, and he's got a souped-up Mustang, I think, or something like that. And to my defense, I think I missed the start a little bit from the light. But we're racing, and I think we're probably pretty even. When we got the higher gears, you know, he's got like a 900 horsepower car, you know. So. And he pulled away a little bit, and he did win. And then we go to the next light, and it's in California, Southern California. And I don't know why, but anyway, I guess Al's on my right, I'm in here, and on the left side there's a car and people in it, and a bunch of girls, and college girl, whatever. And my window's down. They're like, I hate this story, but anyway, I'll tell you. So you go, hey, what kind of car is that? I go, it's Honda Acura. It's Acura NSX. He goes, that Mustang smoked your NSX. You know? I'm like, thanks. Thank you. Thank you very much. And it was hilarious. I thought it was pretty cool the way, it was just right out of a movie, right out of the scene. Like, they were, what car is that? NSX.
It's modern American graffiti.
Yeah, exactly. That NSX got smoked by that Mustang.
Next up is another topic: violence against race bikes. Suzuki rider Hopkins drew criticism from some of the members of the audience when he kicked his failed Suzuki GP bike after it went lights out during the Qatar MotoGP event earlier in the month. Hopkins kicked the Suzuki several times in frustration after it stopped, and there was talk, not much of it credible, that Suzuki would fine or punish him because much of the incident was caught on live global television. It's not widely known, but there is a long and glorious history of riders beating their machines after a painful loss, or equipment failures like Hopkins. What was it the guitarist from The Who, Pete Townsend, once said? Sometimes the equipment's just gotta pay. There are loads of riders who have taken their frustration out on their motorcycles, but probably most infamous is 1987 world champion Wayne Gardner, who didn't mind sharing the blame with his bike when bad things happened. Gardner pounded dents in the gas tank of a priceless Honda RVF Suzuka 8-hour bike when a fuel miscalculation cost him the win at the 1990 Suzuka 8 Hours event. He also lashed out at his NSR 500 occasionally, most notably when it gave out on the final lap of a GP and allowed someone else to win. I always found Gardner's violence toward race bikes sort of odd because he was always so apologetic when he crashed and destroyed a bike. I watched him walk up and apologize to Irv Kanemoto, his then team owner, at one of the 1990s US GPs. Other riders who would have never exactly empathized with Valentino Rossi's spiritual connection to his bikes, trying to become at one with them, include John Kosinski, Carl Fogarty, Scott Russell, and several others. If you look at the situation from a wider perspective, it's always amazed me that more race bikes aren't assaulted more often. Here we have highly motivated men, many in their 20s, riding machines so powerful that one mistake can have them staring at the angel of death in the face. Couple that with the fact that these men transcend competitiveness as most athletes know it, and are nearly bubbling with adrenaline when they ride. What's more, inside them, that adrenaline is nicely layered on top of a thick serving of testosterone. Knowing these factors, again, it's always amazed me that more bikes, and jaws for that matter, aren't broken when things go south at the races. Yeah, sometimes the equipment's just gotta pay.
Buster's down! Oh! I suck and I'm slow.
Okay, but what actually scares these guys, professional racers? You might be surprised to learn that it's the usual garden variety of semi-irrational fears we all have in most cases. Clearly, riding at a pace unattainable by mortals, and many times on a motorcycle unfit for use by mortals, puts racers in a special category immediately. Because to them, knocking around at near lap record pace, or making an outside pass in the final corner at Road Atlanta isn't anything too special. It's what they do, or more accurately, can do. While I had Duhamel alone, I asked him about what actually scares him, as I'd heard he's not crazy about heights or rolling swells of water. In usual Duhamel form, he told a couple of entertaining stories illustrating he's not crazy about heights and, yes, once became so seasick he vomited on one of his friends.
I got this one voice in my head. I don't know if it's the same for everybody. It wants to jump off the balconies every time. I don't know if it's suicidal or wants to fly, but really, no, I always feel like you're going to tip over for me. I look over. I love being high. I always request the highest floor they got, and I like looking over there, but man, it always feels like point. There's no coming back from that. You know, I always wanted to do it, but I never done it. One time in Spa, I had nothing to do before a 24-hour race. I said, I'm going to go parachuting, and I got there, and it was a very somber mode, and everybody was not, the thing was not, you know, the place was shut down basically, and I was like, wow, what's wrong? The air is wrong, you know. It was, and an instructor that was strapped in with a student actually parachute had a malfunction, and they died. You know, and I was like, wow, that was close. You know, would I've been here the day before or something. So, but yeah, I do it. I don't think that would happen to me. Yeah, I flew in a helicopter with Ray with no doors. Yeah, Ray Plum with no doors. You know, where you can just leap off. No, I don't think we have to 15,000. We'd have to ask Ray. I think we're probably like 3,000, 4,000 feet off the ground. Which would hurt anyway if he jumped off. It was as small as you can make it, and there's no door, and basically, you know, seatbelt almost. I flew it a little bit with Ray, and then he let me handle the control a little bit, and then we flew in his plane, I think, too, one time. Anyway, he comes out to Vegas. He should come out more often. You know, I don't know. I guess what would scare me on a serious note, I don't like, I love scuba diving. I've done it. Scuba dive at the Great Barrier Reef. But water for me, boats are not a big thing. I'm not in love with boats. I get motion sickness, but water to me is kind of like jumping off a building. If you mess up, you're done, you know. So I like to have a second chance. I went out there and I do get seasick, and it's not a good combo to stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning drinking. And then in the morning wake up and forget your Dramamine. You don't have your Dramamine, and aspirins is not a substitute. So I took like 2 or 3 aspirins with no breakfast and got onto a boat. I think I might have had breakfast, real spicy stuff. I was in Cabo with the aspirins, and I think I would have been sick if I would have stayed on shore. But then we got on this boat, and this captain was the worst captain in the world. I mean, he was tacking sideways into the waves, but too much sideways. The boat was almost flipping over. Dishes were flying everywhere. I think he was trying to kill us. So anyway, I was sleeping, and then I woke up, and I tried to get over to the side as quick as I could. I was on the second tier of the boat, and heaved one out over there, and I guess I mistimed it with the timing of the swinging and swaying and everything, and I blamed it on a giant seagull, actually. When I hit a guy, it was just a big seagull. So it didn't work.
Reader mail. We have 2 pieces of reader mail this cast, both in the form of a question posed to us. If you have a question for the Soupkast, send it via email to superbikeplanet@gmail.com. Rachel Bumgarner asks, at the intro to the MotoGP telecast, the girl says something. Do you know what it is? It sounds like she's saying, are you wearing boots or are you ready boots? Any ideas? A girl does say something at the intro to each MotoGP broadcast, but I have no idea what it is. None at all. This is probably because I remain so stunned that a contributor to Superbike Planet actually was offered a job by Dorna to do voiceover on the English broadcast of MotoGP, and they hired him. Dorna, Superbike Planet. We have a long-running feud with Dorna because of their fascist, no, I wouldn't say fascist, I would say short-sighted approach to GP press credentials. So to later hear none other than Mark Braxy Brax, last seen covering the Mladen test at Phillip Island for Soup, working for Dorna, bewilders me. I can barely comprehend anything after I hear that. Next question from reader Travis Stidham. Does the Pirelli spec tire rule really make SBK racing closer? Answer. I believe so, for what it's worth, but it comes with a pretty heavy cost and it really doesn't change much. As most know, the SBK series uses a spec tire whereby all of the teams use the same brand of tire, Pirelli. Initially, when this happened, lap times stagnated for the better part of 2 or more seasons. But I think now they've begun to drop into the area where they were when SBK was non-denominational in regard to tires, which I guess is sort of progress. But the move to Pirelli hasn't been a painless one, and it remains so today, as evidenced with last weekend's Valencia WSBK race, where so many teams were complaining about the lack of grip from Pirelli tires. There really are no absolutes in racing, but something that comes close is that if you have the best rider on the best team with the best equipment, the best team is not always synonymous with the best equipment, mind you. He's going to win. If you have 2 teams with nearly equally good riders and equipment, they will fight for the wins. I think this is what you're seeing now in WSBK. Troy Corser and Troy Bayliss are the best riders on the best bikes, run by the best teams. They are going to dominate a series like WSBK, whether the teams are forced to run Pirellis or their own favorite brand of tire. And there is more competition back in the pack now, So it would seem to be a good thing that they're spec tire. I mean, if your care isn't in building a package that is the ultimate fastest superbike in the world, because the WSBK guys had to duck some serious egg when Matt Mladen tested with them at Phillip Island. Mladen had a big crash on a track that he hasn't raced on in over a decade and really doesn't look too comfortable on, and he still went slightly faster than the WSBK guys. This from a national guy. As a purist, I'd like to see WSBK return to its former place as the best superbike series in the world. But I can live with it if they continue to stick with the spec tire rule. Okay, that's it for this Soupkast. Thanks for tuning in and downloading us. For newbies, you can hit the site at superbikeplanet.com for more text-based news, features, and more photos than you can shake a spec tire at. Soupkast is engineered by Phil Fusen.
Soupkast is brought to you by American Honda.